Cost of power. New tonight on Our News Live at 7. The power company unveils a renewable energy plan that's expected to help consumers save on the high cost of electricity. But first, a tourism numbers snapshot provides more evidence in the country's economic rebound. Figures up by 30% this period. The tourism chief goes on record. Plus, a possible reboot of the failed Fire Festival 5 years later. The organizer, now a convicted fraudster, takes to social media. Then, in Our News at 7:30, the parents of a 2-year-old who died in a recent car ride are granted bail a day after they were convicted of manslaughter. Our News Live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Candino Knowles. After serving a prison sentence for defrauding investors of $26 million, embattled Fire Festival founder Billy McFarland announcing the return of his failed festival, now dubbed Fire Festival 2. It's expected to come in 2024, but the lack of details leaving his followers with many unanswered questions. We have more on this in just a bit, as well as news of a newly signed contract aimed at cutting electricity costs. But we begin with news on the economy, as the country's tourism chief says arrivals are up 30% compared to the same period in 2019. The numbers pointing to a major economic rebound for the country post the global COVID-19 pandemic. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper, who earlier foreshadowed arrivals could exceed 8 million visitors, says this would set a new record. Cooper telling Our News there has been tremendous growth in airlift in the Bahamas, adding new strategies are yielding significant results.
Barring an act of God, we're going to break the 8 million visitor arrival mark, and we anticipate that based on the strategies that we're putting in place by the Ministry of Tourism right now, that we're going to exceed the 8 million tourist arrival mark, which would be the best year ever in the history of the Bahamas.
That was Cooper speaking on the sidelines of the launch of the second annual Caribbean Investment Forum, where he revealed there is growing interest in trade and tourism from Africa. He hinted at the possibility of direct flights from there.
Suffice to say, there is significant growing interest in Africa for trade as well as tourism, and we continue to keep the lines of communications open with our stakeholders and partners. Many people are calling for a direct flight. I foreshadow that will happen, but that's all I can say at this point.
All right. After one failed festival back in 2017, Billy McFarland is promoting Fire Festival 2. In a video on his Instagram page, McFarland revealed tickets are officially on sale, although no exact date or location has been given. He only revealed that it'll be held in the Caribbean.
It has been the absolute wildest journey to get here, and it really all started during the 7th-month stint in solitary confinement. I wrote out this 50-page plan of how it would take this overall interest and demand in fire, and how it would take my ability to bring people from around the world together to make the impossible happen, but how it would find the best partners in the world to allow me to be me while executing Fire's vision to the highest level.
The ambitious plan comes a year after McFarland was released from prison to a halfway house in New York City after being sentenced to 6 years in prison in October 2018 for defrauding Fire Festival investors. McFarland acknowledging he defrauded investors of $26 million in 2017. The festival was set to take place in Exuma and was promoted as an ultra-luxurious event. Now, according to his Instagram page, it seems people have already started buying tickets for this new event.
We are targeting Fire Festival 2 for the end of next year, and in the meantime, we'll be doing pop-ups and events across the world. Guys, this is your chance to get in. This is everything I've been working towards.
All right, government signing a contract today with the Caribbean Center for Energy and Energy Efficiency for an integrated resource and resilience plan. The plan, it's aiming to integrate 30% renewable energy generation in the power grid by 2030. It's all in hopes of leading to a more stable and lower cost of electricity, as well as better impact on the climate. Bahamas Power and Light CEO Siobhan Cambridge.
basically what the Integrated Resource and Resilience Plan does is look at the assets that the utility has and the goals that we have in terms of migrating to more efficient production, particularly the integration of renewables. And they do that in the most efficient manner. So it looks at how do we retire existing assets, or how do we look at any additional capacity that we need and the integration of renewables. And this plan is not only just for New Providence, but it also faces how we as a utility evolve throughout the Bahamas, the integration of renewables.
Now, Cambridge says funding for that aspect of the project will come from the Inter-American Development Bank. Meanwhile, Executive Director of the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, Dr. Gary Jackson, says their role is to help member states like the Bahamas navigate their energy transition.
What is more important is understanding the climate impact. You will have experienced Dorian. And one of the things that we want to look at is within this plan is looking at mitigation and adaptation strategies that you may need to have given the high heat that you are experiencing now, the hurricanes that you may experience. We may not be resilient in the way that you will be able to reduce the impact, but you'll be able to rebound from the impact in a fast recovery time is a faster way.
All right, for more on this new plan, head over to ournews.bs. Now, speaking of climate impact, it's time now for your first look at temperatures, and meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's standing by in the Weather Center. And Greg, I know we are still watching the tropics. Franklin, all eyes on Franklin, right?
Eyes on Franklin. Good news, Franklin has weakened. It's down to 40 miles per hour. Still moving rather slowly. We don't like systems to move that slowly across the open waters, because the waters are very warm right now. But yeah, Franklin is still headed our way. We still have the alerts posted for only the Turks and Caicos Islands, but we're still employing for the residents of Southeast Bahamas to continue to monitor the system. Taking a look at tropical climatology, where we are right now in the season, we are just we're on that upward glide to the peak, which is around September 10th. And of course, we are asking you to get ready for the hurricane season if you haven't done so, because as you said, we are still tracking Franklin. The latest coordinates for Franklin, it places it roughly under 400 miles just to the southeast of the Turks and Caicos Islands, Grand Turk actually, and just around 385 miles, I think it's from Matthewtown, Inagua. As I mentioned, it's slowed down, it's weakened somewhat, but it's expected to move across Hispaniola by this evening, this evening into tomorrow, and is expected to interact with the mountain ranges across here. That should further weaken it, but once it emerges back over our waters, we expect it to strengthen some. So as I said, Turks and Caicos Island, we still have the alert for you. Tropical storm conditions possible in your neighborhood by late tomorrow and into Thursday. And we could see some rainfall with the system up to 1 to 2 inches, isolated amounts of 4 inches. Most of the activity will remain across open waters. But we are continue to watch the system. That's the only system that we are concerned about. We also have Harold, which formed last night, but that is now a tropical depression. More activity in the tropics. We'll tell you more about that later on in our newscast.
We are just getting started in our news, but when we come back, find out why a murder suspect has been granted permission to travel. Plus, the F&M chairman defends Elizabeth MP hopeful a day after she announced her bid for the seat. And later, the death of a 2-year-old on a recent car ride, putting child safety front and center. Tonight, we explore the proper use of car seats when our news returns. A judge has granted permission to a murder suspect on bail to travel for medical treatment. Sintuan Duncombe was shot multiple times last month while at Fleming Street. As a result, his eyesight has been affected. A Supreme Court judge has varied Duncombe's bail to permit him to get medical care in Cuba for a month. Duncombe is on bail, awaiting a retrial for his alleged role in the murders of Shane Gardner and his girlfriend Tishka Brainin in Fresh Creek, Andros, back in December 2013. In addition to the murder charges, Duncombe is accused of kidnapping the couple, conspiring to rob them, and attempting to rob them. Well, Chairman of the Free National Movement, Dr. Dwayne Sands, issuing a statement today over an incident on Elizabeth Estates Park yesterday. The statement noting that prominent Bahamian activist Tennille Burrows, also known as Tada, was holding a press event in a public space to announce her intent to offer her candidacy for the constituency of Elizabeth as an independent. Sadly, her announcement to the public, he says in that statement, was interrupted by heckling from agents of the current MP for Elizabeth, Jobeth Colby Davis. According to Sands, what ought to have been an event that demonstrated the vibrancy of our democracy was instead marred by gangsterism. He went on to add that as a former MP of Elizabeth, chairman of the FNM, and as a Bahamian, he condemns this crass and boorish behavior categorically. Our news team was at that news conference yesterday and was able to record a part of that interaction.
Happy to have all these sorts of people here to support me in this. Burrows for Elizabeth. Or whatever you stand for.
We are here in support of the Honorable Minister Jobeth Colby Davis.
Okay.
Okay, so at the end of the day, you're a nice lady, but
And you're a nice man.
yes, thank you.
And a good
So,
DJ.
That's right. So let me tell you, find somewhere else to go and run.
Well, yesterday, the parents of a 2-year-old was charged with manslaughter by negligence after the toddler was found unresponsive while hanging out of the window of his parents' car. Our news recently speaking with pediatrician Dr. Tamara Moss about the unfortunate situation, highlighting the importance of car seats and parents using them correctly.
These car seats, once you put them in there, they should be in the back seat of the car, where there's no risk of airbag injuries should those be deployed. Airbags themselves can actually cause significant injuries with bruises to the face, broken bones in the face, just based on the force of impact from airbags alone.
All right, Artaya Hall, she speaks with Dr. Moss about choosing the right daycare for your toddler in our Back to School series that's coming up in Our News at 7:30. When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as former U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll be arrested on Thursday in the Georgia election fraud case. Plus, the FDA approves a Pfizer RSV vaccine for moms-to-be to protect their unborn babies against the scary respiratory infection. And the 13th Commonwealth Women's Meeting gets underway in grand style at the Atlantis Resort. Our News is back in a moment. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Former U.S. President Donald Trump plans to surrender on Thursday in Atlanta in connection with his indictment in Georgia on charges he sought to overturn his 2020 election loss in the state. Diane Tu reports.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump plans to turn himself in on Thursday to Atlanta authorities over his indictment in Georgia, according to a social media post Monday. On his Truth Social platform, Trump said, quote, "I'll be going to Atlanta, Georgia on Thursday to be arrested." The indictment alleges his connection with efforts to overturn his presidential election loss in the state of Georgia in 2020. In a 98-page indictment unveiled last week, Trump and 18 other defendants were charged with a total of 41 criminal counts in the case. In his Truth Social post Monday, the former president described it as a politically motivated act to derail his re-election campaign. CNN reported that the surrender date was set during negotiations on Monday between Trump's lawyers and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office over Trump's consent bond and release conditions. A court filing of the agreement shows the former president faces a $200,000 bond and orders not to send or repost threatening social media messages as he awaits trial in Georgia. The local sheriff's office said earlier on Monday there will be a, quote, hard lockdown of the area surrounding the Fulton County Jail, commonly known as Rice Street, when Trump surrenders. The Georgia case is Trump's fourth indictment. He has pled not guilty in all of those cases. While he's the current frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, he could spend much of next year in court, even as he campaigns for the White House. Prosecutors in the Georgia case have proposed that the trial start on March the 4th, while Trump's lawyers have asked for a 2026 trial.
And U.S. regulators on Monday approved the first RSV vaccine for pregnant women so their babies will be born with protection against the scary respiratory infection. RSV is notorious for filling hospitals with wheezing babies every fall and winter. The Food and Drug Administration cleared Pfizer's maternal vaccination to guard against a severe case of RSV when babies are most vulnerable. That's from birth through 6 months of age. The next step, the Center of Disease Control and Prevention must issue recommendations for using the vaccine. And now to the region, as authorities in the Dominican Republic shut schools and government offices today as Tropical Storm Franklin took aim at the island of Hispaniola that it shares with Haiti. The storm was expected to make landfall on the island Wednesday and drop up to 10 inches of rain in both countries, with up to 15 inches in isolated areas. A storm surge of up to 3 feet is also forecast. Dominican officials announced the closure of schools, government offices, and businesses until Thursday. And finally, members of former owner of enslaved Africans, John Gladstone, will be arriving in Guyana later this week to participate in the launch of the International Center for Migration and Diaspora Studies at the University of Guyana, and plans to apologize for their ancestors' role in that dehumanizing period of world history. UOG said in a statement, the Gladstone family, which includes several historians, have confirmed they will in fact offer an apology given the role their ancestor had played. John Gladstone was the father of four-time British Prime Minister William Gladstone and owned 2,500 slaves. All right, the Commonwealth 13th Women's Affairs Ministers Meeting opening in grand style at the Atlantis Grand Ballroom. The three-day international meeting will be held under the theme Equality Toward a Common Future. Commonwealth leaders, civic organizations, and youth groups coming together as Bahamian talent was on full display for nations around the world. Megan Shepherd was there.
Man, we have to build these young girls up, help them see that they are worthy. And like Sweet Emily say, we have to die with our dignity. Oh, absolutely.
Performers from the Dundas putting on a short play at the opening of the 13th Women's Affairs Ministers meeting, highlighting the accomplishments and achievements of Bahamian women that have played significant roles in the country's development. Leaders from around the world will be in high-level discussions as the Commonwealth countries seek to push the advancement of women and girls. previous chair country, Kenya, giving this advice as the Bahamas now takes the post for the next 3 years.
I urge you, as you take over the leadership, that you benefit from the peer global learning that is present in this room. I urge you to listen and walk with those who have walked the journey and those who hope to walk the journey after you.
Prime Minister Philip Davis also urging leaders to maximize the time and opportunity to exchange ideas and lay the foundation for more effective policy solutions.
The levels of violence against women and girls remain unacceptable. We can't stop working on this issue until women are safe everywhere, whether they're walking alone at night, in their workplaces and schools, or at home with loved ones.
Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat, Patricia Scotland, noting the 56 nations that comprise the Commonwealth make up 1/3 of the world's population. She says when we come together, we are a force for good in the world.
The indispensable combination, together with our capacity to tackle challenges and navigate change in an action-oriented way, give us enormous potential.
The evening also featuring a melody by the talents of Sweet Emily, Fanshawn Evans, and Leah Coley, and a Junkunu rush out by the reigning champs, One Family. Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
Still to come in Our News Today in History, find out interesting facts about the day that was August 22nd. Then, in Our News at 7:30, beachgoers split on concerns over shark attacks. This, a day after a man was found dead with shark bites. And we are still following the parents of that 2-year-old who died after a recent car ride. The two have since been charged and now granted bail. The story of Our News continues. Welcome back to Our News. Our News' Our Bahamian series continues tonight. It's being brought to you by the Bahamas Independent Secretariat. Tonight, we focus on the life and times of Gerald Augustus Bartlett. Originally from 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama, Gerald Augustus Bartlett received his education from 8 Mile Rock All-Age School and joined the police force in 1946 as a recruit constable, undergoing 5 months of training. He was later assigned to general duties as an orderly at Government House before being transferred to the Office of the Commissioner of Police as a clerk. A series of promotions followed from 1957 to 1973 as Bartlett climbed the ranks to Deputy Commissioner of Police and served in administration at police headquarters. In 1981, Bartlett was appointed commissioner and served until his retirement in 1987. The decade of the 80s was a challenging time for the Bahamas, then under scrutiny for corruption in government during the height of the drug trade. But Commissioner Bartlett is credited for transforming and leading the force to meet and rise above the many challenges of that time. Throughout his career, he amassed an impressive record of quality service and was made a Commander of the Victorian Order, Commander of the British Empire, and granted the Queen's Police Medal and the Colonial Police Medal by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Government also granted him the Bahamas Silver Jubilee Award for law enforcement. Commissioner Bartlett made lasting contributions to the development of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and to the development of the Bahamas, placing him among the many nation builders who helped set the foundation for an independent Bahamas. Bartlett passed away on October 1st, 1999. He was 77 years old. All right, to see that episode in the Our Bahamian series, you can head over to ournews.bs. It's time now for your spotlight on today in history, that is, the day that was August 22nd. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1964, Kevin Peter Turnquest was born in Acklands. Turnquest is an accountant, businessman, politician, and former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Turnquest attended Hawksbill High School in Freeport, Grand Bahama, and graduated from Prairie View A&M University in Texas. In the 2017 general election, he ran as a candidate for East Grand Bahama constituency for the Free National Movement. Turnquest won his seat in that election and was sworn in as Deputy Prime Minister on May 15th that year. Then, August 22nd, 2012, the Free National Movement bid a final farewell to former Cabinet Minister and Party Chairman Charles Maynard in a memorial service at its headquarters on Mackey Street. Days before, Maynard was campaigning for the North Abaco by-election when he collapsed and died. Then party leader Dr. Hubert Minnis and former leader Hubert Ingram remembered his life.
He wanted us to develop youth programs and ensure that the young people had a future to look forward to within our beautiful country.
Charlie revealed himself to be a good and worthy colleague, a disciplined member of our party. He was chatty, serious, jovial but thoughtful, and he was always a fierce defender of our cause.
In 2016, nearly 2 weeks after the first confirmed case of Zika virus in the Bahamas, health officials reported 3 new cases on New Providence. Pinewood Gardens and Carmichael Road were areas of top concern. At the time, there were 83 suspected cases. 8 of them were pregnant women.
We have received notification of 3 additional cases. All cases sought medical attention after having symptoms suggestive of Zika virus infection. All patients have been treated for associated symptoms and are doing well.
In 2019, public service workers battled the elements in a protest over government's failure to pay a $1,200 lump sum payment totaling $20 million. The protest came weeks ahead of the new academic year.
Mr. Prime Minister, we ain't gonna be here long, you know. This is ours. Our money. And we want it now.
All right, that historical recap is available for you to see again right at ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall with the latest headlines. Italia?
Yes, Ken, thanks so much. Well, beachgoers split on concerns over shark attacks a day after a man was found dead with shark bites. And we are still following the parents of that 2-year-old who died after a recent car ride. Here are your latest headlines. Mixed emotions first tonight on Our News Live at 7:30.
Coming up tonight, following that shark bite, we hear from beachgoers who expressed their concern over the matter. I'm Berthany McDermott, and I'll have those details for you tonight in Our News.
Plus, the parents of a 2-year-old charged with manslaughter by negligence released. We have details from the courtroom. This as a pediatrician highlights the proper use of car seats for your little ones. And later, gold medalist Stephen Gardner injured today during the 400-meter semifinals in the World Games in Hungary. We've got the full story and more when Our News Live at 7:30 returns. Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. One day after a man was found with shark bites to his body, beachgoers are split on their concerns. While some say more needs to be done, others say shark attacks are few and far between. Our Bethany McDermott canvassed the shoreline today and filed this report.
The recent discovery of a dead man on Saunders Beach with what police believe are shark bites sparking fear and concern for many. Some are calling for increased surveillance on beaches.
We should have a lifeguard on each beach in the Bahamas, and that is highly populated by visitors, especially here in Nassau. Their job is to overlook the water and to make sure that there's no sharks around or monorays or stingrays that could potentially harm or hurt somebody.
We should have some lifeguards. We should have some beach attendants on the beach to be safe. Then tell the guests them when they come on the beach to be careful how far to go and which not to go.
On Monday, police were alerted to the lifeless body of a man on Saunders Beach around 7 a.m. Police say the victim had apparent shark bites to the left arm and ear, adding it's estimated the body may have been floating for up to 6 hours. But Moss isn't alone. I also spoke with this taxi driver and vendor who too expressed concerns.
That's hard on all of us, especially for our tourists. We need to protect our tourists and our Bahamian people.
It's normally causing a scare because you don't want to get it to the guests when they come on the ship that don't go on the beach. Don't do this on the beach, just stay on land or this and that. That would affect the people on the beach who have to make a late hustle, or the taxi drivers, or whoever.
Now, while there were some who expressed concern, there were others who felt otherwise.
No, not really concerned, because people don't feed nobody or throw nothing in the water and stuff like that.
No, we haven't seen any evidence of sharks. We didn't hear about that one incident, but it's beautiful here. We don't worry about that.
No, we're not worried.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Thanks for that, Bethany. Well, a magistrate on Tuesday set bail at $9,500 for the parents accused of causing the death of their 2-year-old son through negligence. 23-year-old DeMargio Thurston and 20-year-old Sabrina Henry were remanded to prison on Monday pending a bail hearing. The prosecution did not object to their release. They are accused of causing the death of their son, Jeremiah Thurston, on August 12th. On the day in question, the toddler was found unresponsive while hanging out the window of his parents' car. Thurston and Henry will return to court on November 23rd to receive voluntary bill of indictment papers. Well, yesterday, the parents of that 2-year-old was charged with manslaughter by negligence after the toddler was found unresponsive. Our News speaking with pediatrician Dr. Tamara Moss about the unfortunate situation. She highlights the importance of car seats and parents using them correctly. Dr. Moss says if you put your child in an adult seatbelt and it does not fit, then a booster seat is needed, which she says can be used for kids up until the age of 7 or up to 60 pounds. As for car seats, she says it was once recommended by age, but that has now changed.
Is more of a weight and size recommendation, and so they should be rear-facing up to 40 pounds. Yeah, so if you're not doing that, you want to make sure that you get a car seat that's comfortable for them, one that will, some of them have extensions that allow you to accommodate for, of course, their increase in size over the years. You want to make sure that you have one with a 4-point restraint so that the restraint is in the middle of the chest, so that takes the brunt of the impact, if there is one.
All right, in just a few days, many toddlers will be going to preschool for the first time, but that decision is not always easy for parents. In this report, I spoke with a doctor who is sharing some tips which can hopefully help you make the right choice.
Get as much information about the school or environment that they're sending their child to as possible. Recognizing that there's a difference between, let's say, what a preschool is and a daycare.
If you're sending your toddler to preschool for the very first time, the thought alone may be nerve-wracking. But pediatrician at Healthy Kids Pediatrics, Dr. Tamara Moss says, when trying to choose the right preschool, the best way to make the right decision is to show up.
Go in, have a look around, speak with the administrators, ask them all the questions that you have in terms of what type of environment is it? Is it a structured environment? What's their policy on nutrition, in terms of what they're allowed to eat? Are they providing lunch? Are parents sending snacks?
But what age is the right age to send your toddler to preschool?
At the age between 18 months to 2 years, children are really taking in what they're seeing in their environment, very perceptive, very open to different types of stimulation. And so I think you would have the most to gain.
And for parents who are concerned about their little ones getting sick?
They're going to get sick, especially the 5 and under age group, those preschool age kids. They have very naive immune systems. They've not been exposed to a whole lot. And then that's been compounded with the pandemic over the last few years where kids have been isolated.
But she says parents can do their part to minimize illnesses by keeping up with their children's immunizations and ensuring that they are aware of the school's policies.
You want to send them to a school where if children are sick, they're not allowed to come into the classroom with fevers. You want to make sure that they adhere to strict sanitization protocols with cleaning toys and shared surfaces. And then speaking to your own child, if they're able to have that level of understanding, just reinforcing the importance of hand hygiene, washing your hands before lunch, washing your hands after leaving the bathroom, and not sharing juice boxes, which is a big thing kids love to do.
While forecasters still on high alert as there are a few disturbances brewing in the Atlantic. And with the start of the new academic year just days away, some parents are wondering whether or not there will be any major concern as they prepare to send their little ones back to school. Well, meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center live with more on this. Greg?
Yeah, southeast Bahamas possibly, but that will be short-lived because Franklin is still out there and it's still approaching us. But we will talk about that later on in our newscast for the systems out there in the open Atlantic. Partly cloudy skies outside our studios right now. It's humid, 85 degrees. The winds out of the east-northeast, and it is breezy, tightening pressure gradient now across our area. It's going to make us a little breezy for the next couple of days. Feels like 90 degrees on the outside. Satellite view, there's an upper level low that's spinning just to the east of the Bahamas. That's triggering some showers as well as some isolated thunderstorms. That combined with that stiff easterly or northeasterly wind flow, bringing that moisture across us. And if you look down at the bottom of your screen there, that's the east coast of Hispaniola. That's the approach of Franklin. A lot of showers and thunderstorms spreading across that area. We'll continue to move across Hispaniola tomorrow and then eventually moving into the southeast Bahamas. So yeah, we will see some showers across the southeast Bahamas by tomorrow evening. That's your first check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast and what's happening out in the tropics. Still to come.
Still to come on our news, a taxi cab union executive calls for the return of the glory days after a visitor claims she was abandoned by a local taxi driver. Also, the leader of the Free National Movement firing back at the chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. He says they are not to be criticized. Plus, $1 and a dream. Coach Yolette McEwen recounts her journey as her Ole Miss basketball team continues to climb to higher heights. Our Sasha Lightborn has the candid interview when our news returns.
Riveting Viking soccer.
Last the 12th, your family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, Sylvan.
Doctors Hospital is reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
Introducing the Focal Smart Pass app that helps you to fuel up faster. Here's how it works. Download the app on the App Store or get it on Google Play and create your profile with payment details. Visit your nearest Shell station, open the app, scan the pump's QR code, select your payment amount, and begin fueling. Say goodbye to cash and cards because the Focal Smart Pass offers secure and convenient payment options right at your fingertips. Download Focal Smart Pass now and fuel up faster today.
Bahamas Taxi Cab Union President Wesley Ferguson is calling for a return to the glory days. This as a visitor claims she and her family were abandoned by a taxi driver. He says, unfortunately, the industry has evolved into one over the years that doesn't have any checks or balances. To solve this, Ferguson says the union has been lobbying for the re-establishment of the disciplinary tribunal court.
Going back to those days when I was a taxi driver, the road traffic supervisor, those persons that wear the white shirt and blue pants, they were the king of this industry. They called the shots. They were not on the tape. They were not interested in what your problem was, what your excuse was. It was either black or white. Right down to dress code, the condition of your car, what you charge the tourists, the whole 9 yards. They was in charge of it all. So there was no getting out of an infraction.
Ferguson says the union has looked into the previous act during the pandemic, along with ways to improve it. However, they have not received a response as yet.
The only thing that was left to do was to go back to this document and extract or delete the COVID protocols, because some of those rules and regulations was basically attached to the COVID pandemic and the protocols. So therefore, we was just supposed to remove those items and tweak it to bring it up to date with what is going on in the tourist, in the taxi industry right now. And so far, nothing really has been done. We discussed it, we agreed that we should move ahead, and so far I haven't heard anything concrete.
The new session of Parliament will begin on October 4th. The decision to prorogue Parliament was heavily criticized by the Free National Movement. Well, Foreign Affairs Minister and PLP Chairman Fred Mitchell says the Parliament being prorogued is not uncommon and the FNM is making mischief. Well, leader of the opposition, Michael Pintard, hitting back at Mitchell. He insists Mitchell is not in a good position to be critical of the FNM.
Given the fact that he does not want Keith Bell and the cabinet of the Bahamas to do its job, which is to be accountable to the Bahamian people and to answer questions where there is clear actions that are contrary to the laws of the Bahamas. And so we would encourage him to basically be accountable and transparent in giving account to the people who voted him in.
When our news comes back from the break, a little girl from the Bahamas with $1 and a dream. Coach Yolette McEwen shares her story.
The Bahamas swim team makes their triumphant return from the Goodwill Games laden with hardware. And we hear some more from our FIBA pre-Olympic qualifier champs. Hold tight, our sports is coming up next.
And star Bahamian athlete Stephen Gardner injured while competing in the World Games in Hungary. The details when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. Making it to the Sweet 16 in college basketball on both the men's and women's side is an awesome feat. Many coaches never get to experience that, but our very own coach Yolette McEwen accomplished that this year. In her first sit down with local media, she recalls this year's journey to the Sweet 16 with our Sasha Lightborn.
When we started off the season, full transparency, I didn't really know how we would be, just because we had just lost a draft pick, a lottery draft pick. And, you know, some people had to step up in some big-time roles. We only had 11 on the roster. So I didn't really know.
And that's how head coach of Ole Miss University's women's basketball program, Yolette McEwen, went into her last season. Coach Yo, as she's affectionately called, however, managed to take Team 48 all the way to the Sweet 16, beating powerhouse Stanford University along the way.
And my team was just relentless. They just kept winning, kept bonding, kept growing in love. And I just kept coaching them. So when we went to the Sweet 16, it looked to me like Stanford was a Goliath. And maybe they were, you know, the number one team, number one seed at their place. They had gone to the Sweet 16 for 11 years in a row. What are the odds that Ole Miss comes in there and beat them? But I can tell you, everybody in our room believed it.
After making it to the Sweet 16, Coach Yo told ESPN that she was just a girl from the Bahamas with $1 and a dream, an interview that went viral.
Before the game, in my notes, I wrote a quote because I felt like had we won, I would be too emotional. But when she put the mic in front of me, I just spoke from the heart. You know, I have a lot of pride in the Bahamas. I was born and raised here, so that just came out because it was true. Like, you know, sometimes you go with nothing, and I literally went over to the United States with not much. I had a dream, though.
Coach Yo was in town for a few days. She held a free basketball clinic over in Grand Bahama on the weekend and will be honored by Toastmasters International on Friday. Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightborn.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
And just in this afternoon, Our News has learned gold medalist Stephen Gardner has received an apparent injury in the 400 meters semifinals at the World Championships in Budapest. As you can see in this footage, Gardner, who ran out of lane 6 in the final heat, pulls up at the 300-meter mark, grimacing in pain. Now, this is definitely some sad news for Team Bahamas, as Gardner was heavily favored to win the 400-meter finals scheduled for Friday. Now, we'll bring you more on this story as it becomes available. Our swimmers returned from the Goodwill Games with over 100 medals, and we talked to our history-making basketball team. Here's Tej Adderley with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Ataya. Good evening, I'm Tej Adderley with our sports. Yesterday, our swim team returned home after completely eviscerating the competition in the Goodwill Games in Jamaica. Our Sasha Lightburn was with the team, and she has this story.
The kids had an early start, arriving at Norman Manley Airport in Kingston just after 7 a.m. yesterday. Once processing was complete, the 40-member team boarded their private Bahamas Air charter with youth sports and cultural officials, as well as officials from the Bahamas Aquatics Federation, parents, and supporters. Once landed at Lyndon Pindling International Airport, the team was greeted by Acting Sports Minister Zane Lightborn after being processed by immigration officials. And then the Junkanoo fanfare begun, where the team was greeted by Prime Minister Philip Davis on the outside. This was followed by a brief ceremony in LPIA's VIP lounge.
When we started this session, I told them we are ambassadors of the Bahamas and we're representation of the 242. And I think somewhere in the stadium there we said 242 to the world. 242 to the world.
Bahamas Aquatics Federation President Algernon Cargill admonishing team members to use this meet to propel them to the Olympics.
Do not bask on the success of this victory. It is only the beginning. We have lots more hard work to do in order to be the Olympic champion.
The Prime Minister shared how proud of the swimmers he was.
Swimming gets you in shape, so your body is healthy, and it translates into a healthy mind, which translates into your being successful in the key area for opportunities. Gives you that, the lock, the key to the lock that opens the door to opportunities, education. And so I'm proud of you all. You all made the Bahamas proud.
In total, the team won 129 medals. That's 55 gold, 45 silver, and 29 bronze. The first time a Bahamas team has ever won the Goodwill Games crown. Reporting for our sports, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
Thank you, Sasha. Moving things over to the court. By now, you should have heard about the national basketball team's historic win at the FIBA pre-Olympic qualifiers in Argentina. The Bahamas won the FIBA pre-Olympic qualifiers on Sunday thanks to the efforts of a cast of NBA players, overseas professionals, and college standouts. Buddy Hield of the Indiana Pacers was one of the team's leading performers, averaging a hair under 20 points a game with 5 rebounds and 3 assists.
Shout out to Chris DeMarco and LJ putting this thing together. This is not easy trying to get all this team together, and I'm picking the right group, the right people, the right people that can gel together. It's hard to find that right continuity.
Evan Charlton came second in her 100-meter hurdles heat, setting a new national record with a time of 12.24 seconds. She'll be on to the semifinals. That'll do it for sports today. I'm Tej Adderley. Have a wonderful evening.
Cloudy skies with a few showers around the islands on this Tuesday. Greg is back with your extended weather forecast when our news continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to our news. Light showers in the capital as forecasters continue to keep a close eye on the tropics. Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we are still tracking Franklin, that's approaching the southeast coast of the Hispaniola. And in the tropics, well, let's take a look far out in the open Atlantic. Remnants of Emily. This is Gert. We're going to continue to track these. Emily still has the potential for some formation over the next couple of days. We have a couple of tropical waves moving off the African coast, and those systems will continue to track towards the west. And of course, all eyes are on Franklin. Franklin is about roughly just under 400 miles to the south of Turks and Caicos Islands, Grand Turk, drifting towards the northwest. Eventually, by tomorrow morning, we expect the system to turn more towards the north and approach the south coast of Hispaniola. And by Wednesday evening, it's expected to cross over and move into the open Atlantic, just to the east of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Rainfall will not be a problem. The real problem with this will be the winds, tropical storm force winds, possible across the Turks and Caicos Islands and portions of the central Bahamas. So it's going to get very choppy and very windy out there. We're asking boaters to remain in port, and we're asking you in the southeast Bahamas to continue to monitor the progress of this system. But Franklin is going to continue to move out, and by the weekend, this system is actually going to become a hurricane. They expect it to become a hurricane, but it'll be way out there in the open Atlantic, and we expect some swells to be affecting us over the course of the next several days. Of course, Harold formed overnight as well, but Harold is quickly dying off. It's moving into Texas. No weather associated with that, and of course, across our area, high pressure system will continue to generate some very brisk winds for us, so very choppy seas out there. Northwest Bahamas and Central Bahamas, small craft caution in effect. Northeast to east winds 15 to 20 knots. They will be gusting higher times. Seas running 4 to 7 feet. Your high tide will be at 34 minutes past midnight. But for the southeast Bahamas, we're asking you guys to stay in port. Easterly winds, they will be bumping up 20 to 25 knots. Seas building very rough 6 to 9 feet. So it's going to get very rough across the southeast Bahamas over the next couple of days. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, we will continue to keep those showers in the forecast due to the stiff winds. They will bring in some Atlantic moisture across us. We will continue to monitor Franklin, and of course the remainder of the week quiet, and we do have a little bit of a disturbance moving in for the beginning of next week, so we look for some more showers in the forecast at that time. That's a look at our forecast. Back to you, Italia.
All right, thanks so much, Greg, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Italia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.